Hello, and welcome to Phantom Zoned, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer and put it on trial for its crimes against humanity. Should a film be found not guilty, it will be allowed to go free and frolic through the fields of life for everyone's enjoyment. If a film should be found guilty, however, it will be jettisoned into the far, far reaches of space, a phantom zone, if you will. I'm your host, as always, Adrian Torres, and joining me is my good... Oh, God, I had it, Scott, so I apologize. I had exactly what I wanted to call you, and so why don't we just call you my crypto hippie darknet buddy, Scott Daly. We'll go with that, because the original one was the full title of the group that I can't remember because they said it 75 different times.
The Revolutionist Agora Cadre something?
The Revolutionary Agorist Cadre.
Yeah, that's the one.
I believe that's... Sure. We'll go with that. People out there in listening land might be confused. First of all, I'm going to apologize and give a warning. In the last couple episodes that we've been doing, since we've had this show, we're in like 34, 35 episodes now. And the last like 3 or 4, since the start of the year, a change has occurred in me. And that there's movies that they're not like making me super mad. I mean, that's a little bit different this time. We'll get into that. But they're having me view the discussions that we have in a different light. Of course, if you listen to the previous episode when we had Abby on 2 weeks ago and we were talking about Belle and the Beast, and we were taking a view towards the end at Christian movies in general, and what traps do they always fall into, what can make them better in the future, and just taking different views as we're dissecting the films. Of course, there's moments where we're going to be making jokes because things, when they exist on a certain heightened level, that's the only way to cope with some of the things. So the two ways that you cope, of course, are usually, anger or laughter to a degree. And so when we delve into some of these movies, the worse that they get, those are, the two reactions that you have. But at the same time, we want to have the discussion about what is it on a filmmaking scale where they break down. Of course, we can't always say how to make them better, but it's just something interesting that I've noticed. And so this film, it has a lot that I'm working through just in the process of finding the ways to discuss it without just righteous indignation coming out. So I want to mention that ahead of time. Scott's probably laughing because he's probably like, oh, I love this movie, and I'm not on the level that you are, because maybe I'm on like Boss Baby levels here, and I'm just completely off points.
I have been totally silent, and I'm waiting to share my opinions on this movie when we get to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll trust that. And because, like we said, we wanted to have more guests and stuff on, and we felt that the time was right. Well, Scott technically felt that this was the exact correct time, that we wanted to have a reunion of sorts. If you were somebody who listened to us at the very beginning or has gone back to some of the first initial episodes of Phantom Zone, you may have realized that there were 3 heads to this monstrous beast originally. And then, things happened. People get busy in life, and when they come to and they refocus their energies, they end up putting out a much better podcast of a totally different name that has a successful Patreon. So I would like to welcome back to the show one Mr. Matt Freeman. How are you doing, Matt?
Laissez-faire.
I hate
Laissez-faire, everyone.
I'm making
the
episode's done.
Doing the ham.
Episode's
symbol.
done.
Doing the ham
Are
thing.
you trying? The hand symbol that looks like a combination of adjusting your ring, or, as I told Scott, having some type of involuntary hand spasm.
Yeah, I'm just scratching my wedding ring, and I think that's what counts.
Yeah, there's no way to do it that doesn't look offensive, actually.
Yes. Are you in the process of flipping me off, but a couple of your fingers are broken? What's going on?
Yeah. What's wrong? Well, are you okay? I'm great. I am so glad that I was invited back for this very special episode, and just can't wait to get into it.
I'm so glad that you were able to take time out of your your busy schedule on what's the other podcast that you do, just so we can plug it right away for people.
Well, currently it's called We've Got Ward, and it's a podcast read through and analysis of the web serial Ward by Wildbow. And we wrapped up We've Got Worm recently, which was a long analysis of the web serial Worm by Wildbow.
Yes, and that's very a much. I'm fine with like the small group of listeners that we have, and that's because we have more than 5 listeners. So I consider that
we have many
success.
more than 5 listeners.
But compared to the other podcast is basically the difference. So that's why I wanted to applaud Matt first of all for that podcast that you guys do, because that's really impressive that you were able to find something like that and develop the audience that you have in the short period of time and have them back you also on Patreon, because I know there's lots of people who are like, oh, how do you get this to work, or how do you gauge success? And I look at what you guys have done and the outpouring of interest that you have from that, and so just wanted to say good job.
Well,
thank you.
I just want to say that the Patreon.
No, Scott, you don't need to interject. You're here every week. I try to get you to plug the show every week, and you don't always do. So this was Matt's moment in the sun. Okay,
but the Patreon.
I don't need to hear about your capitalist ideas. Okay. We have a movie to discuss here.
Oh, this is going to be good.
I'm trying to explain that the Patreon is not just for We've Got Worm. It's for all of the Daily Planet Films podcasts. So it's for this too.
Scott, where has a lot of the draw come from?
That doesn't matter. It's for all of this.
Okay.
A lot of the people that listen to this podcast came to us from that. So
the people aren't coming to the Patreon, exchanging goods and services for this show. There's no bartering system out there for Phantom Zoned.
Hey, actually, we do accept Bitcoin. I just want to say that again. We accept Bitcoin.
Is that gold Bitcoin?
I haven't figured out how to accept gold yet. But that is now on my list as of this week.
Yes. The reason that we've mentioned some of this weirdness is because the movie that we watched tonight dips into a lot of weirdness, we'll say. The title of the film is also the title of the book called Alongside Night. And Alongside Night was written by a gentleman named J. Neil Schulman. Now, the book originally, I want to make sure that I get the year, because I believe it was 1979 that it came out. Yes? Anybody? Yeah, 1979 is when the book originally came out. And the movie came out in 2014. And the interesting connection between them is J. Neil Schulman, who wrote the book, also produced this movie, wrote this movie, directed this movie, has an important starring role in this movie. And that's about it. So end of the episode. We discussed it. There we go. When I came across this originally several weeks back when we were looking for movies to do for the Christian episode. And I simply in Amazon Prime Video put in Christian movie. Just want to see what they had. And one of the posters had Kevin Sorbo on it. And I'm like, I don't think I've heard of this Christian movie with Kevin Sorbo. Go and watch the trailer and was like, that is not a Christian movie. Not sure how that popped up, but boy, oh boy, am I intrigued because of this trailer. And so with that armed, I went to the internet and just put in the name of the movie and put in the name of the writer, and the first thing that popped up was an interview on the Ron Paul channel with the writer and director and everything of the book and movie. I stopped at like 10 seconds in because I'm like, this information that I have right here is all I need to know. I didn't go on to IMDb or anything and do any more research in there, and then just launched into watching the movie. And the whole reason why I mentioned it was interesting that we were able to bring Matt back this time is because Scott started watching this movie last week and got about 30, 40 minutes into the film and sent me a message saying, I have to stop. We have to wait for Matt to do this episode with us.
Yeah. That was the right choice.
Yeah. And Matt, I think, do you want to explain why I thought that and why I was absolutely correct?
Well, let me answer your question with another question, Scott. who got you to read The Fountainhead?
That would be you.
That would be me. Yes.
I thought
I'm
it was
sure...
trash, Matt. I thought it was trash.
Well, that's okay, Scott. That's all right. I'll forgive you for saying that. I definitely used to be in the intellectual circles that this book traffics in and movie, and it was refreshing to visit my old haunts, like the mall, the crypto mall and the agorist, just the kinds of things that used to occupy my mind fairly frequently from around 2000 to 2003, let's say, generously to me. So let's just say I had a little Randian phase. I think that's fair to say. It's fair to say that.
Yeah, you were on the tail end of that when I met you.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I remember explaining my displeasure with this book with you, and you didn't lose your mind at me.
Whoa. Hold on. Are we talking about this
No, the
book,
Fountainhead,
or are we talking about... Okay, I just wanted, for the people who are listening, I wanted to make sure. Because no one has read... Or have you read this book?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's what I was trying to find out. I was trying to find out, because that means that we're likely not to get many answers, which is okay, because that's kind of how the movie treats everyone.
Hold on a second. I just discovered something amazing. The Dread Pirate Roberts, who was the hacker who created the Silk Road internet black market, cites Alongside Night as one of his inspirations.
That's the dumbest thing I ever heard of.
Okay, so we'll just jump into this so we can discuss it, because this movie has layers that reveal itself to you, and just when you think you've got everything figured out, the movie has something happen. And I was glad that I watched this at home. It's not something that I normally do at all when watching a movie, but there were certain parts of this film that I was like, okay, I feel like I'm missing something, and I would grab my phone and I would Google somebody who was appearing on screen, because my spidey sense went off and said, hey, I think this is an actual person, and I think that they're appearing on screen basically to pilfer their ideals, as opposed to how it may concern the book or anything.
Yeah, this is Pilfer Your Ideals, the movie?
Yeah, so we'll get into that. But of course, we always like to start by, mentioning the synopsis of the movie, because that usually helps what line we're going down. So IMDb says, Alongside Night is the story of the final economic collapse of the United States as seen through the eyes of 16-year-old Elliot Vreeland, searching for his missing Nobel laureate economist father, and the mysterious teenage Lorimer, who Elliot meets in a black market underground, whose own father might be the reason Elliot's father is missing.
And you would not be surprised to learn that summary was written by the company that made the movie itself.
It's also just explaining a plot point that occurs about an hour into the movie.
Yeah, I'd say that leaves out about 80% of what happens in the movie, if not more. Yeah. It's a shame we don't have time for a real deep analysis of this movie, because
for 5 hours
we could, because from the very first frame of this film, the composition is stunning. We have the protagonist sitting in this red courtyard in the shadow of a red high school building. Mm-hmm. Okay,
with a red moped that drives up.
Yes, actually, I thought it was a black moped.
No, it was a red. Trust me.
It was a red moped.
It was a cherry red moped, because in every other scene that it shows up in, it sticks out because everything else is either white or beige where it's parked.
So what does the moped symbolize, is my question. Because clearly the camera tracks the moped as it enters the frame. You almost think that that's going to be the protagonist, but the protagonist is actually sitting in a very weak and uninteresting posture in a drab tan coat. Mm-hmm. And you have to wrench your eyes toward him in order to pay attention to him throughout the entire movie. which is
is that because you're distracted by the like 4 different times that the person sets the car alarm for the moped?
Yeah, what was that about?
Yes.
I don't even want to know. For the people who are listening, to give you the best sense of this movie, in like a very, very small 3-second nutshell, 2 of the main outfits, or I guess clothing pieces that people wear throughout the film, are leather jackets and trench coats.
Yeah.
If that kind of gives you pause for a moment, you have an idea of everything that's going to occur in this film.
It's the retrosexual style.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you wanted to make like Neuromancer, or like some kind of futuristic dystopian noir film, and you had a budget of $2,000. This is the aesthetic that you would go for.
Yeah, and also at the same time, you were really proud of that $2,000.
Yeah.
Like, not like, okay, well, we got to do the best we can because we really want to make this movie, but hey, you guys, you won't believe the budget. And the way that you get a sense of this budget happens even before anything appears on the actual movie itself, because we have something that's more tantalizing, more amazing than opening graphics for a Neil Breen movie, for opening graphics for a Tommy Wiseau film, because we have 3 studio credits that show up on the screen very quickly with just static shots for each one. The first one is half of the face of J. Neil Schulman. The second one is a herd of yaks. And the third one is just a model in what looks to be a rejected L'Oreal campaign.
Yeah.
And then the movie begins.
I don't understand.
And then the movie sort of begins. Go ahead, Scott.
Like, were they really 3 different production companies that made this fucking movie?
It had different names on there. And then in the weirdest move that I've seen in any film ever, instead of having like a title card for the movie, instead they decided to have a wide shot of the poster for the book and then zoomed in on the title on there. Like, they couldn't get somebody to make it. They had a opening title sequence with a spinning gold coin, but they couldn't spend, the extra 10 seconds that an individual could spend to, just put the title up on the screen.
Well, and then the title appears on the screen at the end of the movie, so I don't understand why they did this at all. I mean, I guess it was just literally to plug the book.
Well, they were saving the title card for 47 minutes into the movie, remember?
Touche.
This is a weird movie to discuss. We'll try to navigate as best we can, but the main thing that I want to point out is the fact that this is a movie that it takes place maybe slightly in the future. Never really sure. No one knows. It's not something that's expressly discussed at any point in the film. It is a movie that has its own jargon, its own belief system, its own structure, but there's never a point where anything is explained to the audience. Usually when you see a movie that, fits a sci-fi or any type of trappings, you have people at certain points who discuss, the situation as it is so that you can come up to speed and you can piece everything together. This one, you basically need a Wikipedia page to understand, some of the concepts if you're not sure off the top of the head. Like you heard Matt, give the greeting in reference to the movie of Laissez-Faire. And of course, most people, when they hear it, they know the basic passive meaning of it, of somebody who has a laissez-faire attitude. They don't know it in the context of what it means for a certain type of free market society.
Yeah, well, it's weird because, like, the movie, I don't know who this movie's for. And there were many times that I had to stop or actually after the fact this morning while talking to Matt, be like, do these people actually believe this thing? Because the movie doesn't seem, whether it's like clearly speaking against it or like hoisting it up as the ideal.
And yes, they do. So my favorite part was the underground mall, which is just a mall.
Well, okay, we have to ease into that. So we'll try to get through like everything for it, because I know that scene is going to be a big discussion point for all of us. So I apologize for stopping you, because I know where you're going to want to go, because I want to talk about it too. And I had to pause the movie and look up like several business names and the people that they featured on screen, so that I could make sure that what was happening was the movie basically stopping to have a discussion that people actually believe. So, yes. Our movie centers around Elliot, as I mentioned, a 16-year-old who goes to school but doesn't care about school, because nobody in this movie seems to care about school.
Well, he knows everything.
He already knows everything. You know, he knows he's able to barter to get Penn and Teller tickets, because the movie takes place in Las Vegas, of all places, because it's probably one of the few cities in the world where people can be walking around with video cameras and stopping people at random saying, hey, do you want to be in a movie for 5 seconds? We've got $5 for you. And they probably say yes.
You know, this is all very consistent, though, because the movie is trying to characterize the kid as a genius. You know, he's a genius super secret agent kid, which is my favorite trope.
Yeah, I know movie. That because like 5 different people tell us how brilliant he is.
Yeah. No, it's every time anyone talks to him, first of all women are crazy for him.
Yes.
And all the older men are like, yes, you are a sage, clearly. You are my equal.
The only time he does anything to prove it, though, is he puts a password into a computer.
Like, I feel like the author might have read Ender's Game just prior to this. Just a thought.
Well, and he clearly had just seen Star Wars too, because
and he's clearly a big fan of Star Trek, because he ends up casting like at least two former.
Oh yes, Ensign Kim and Commander Tuvok.
It makes me so sad for those guys, because it means they literally had no other work.
Yeah.
Which is totally understandable for Kevin Sorbo being in this movie, and also for Jake Busey, who shows up for literally 30 seconds. But the movie throws you straight into this world, and it doesn't try to do it in really a covert or light touch. But within like the first 3 minutes of the movie, we're getting shown a class presentation in which all the kids were supposed to spend a minute giving a presentation on the destruction of capitalism in a class that's called Contemporary Civilization.
So this is actually something that I unironically liked, was this idea that their assignment was to make YouTube videos, because my first thought was, oh yes, in the future that will be how we do everything.
Yeah, that's
what I thought was interesting about it is the fact that after they have the one kid's video, the teacher's like, okay, that was a good point. Now we're going to watch the president's address. And the very first thing that the president mentions after we hear about the destruction of capitalism is the president saying, let me assure you, we are not witnessing the destruction of capitalism.
And that was my favorite performance of the film.
Yeah, Jake Busey. Yeah. I also like how he said, Assalamu alaikum, which is a really clever way for these people to get their racist views into this movie as well.
Yep.
It's really great.
Yeah. And,
because clearly the downfall of capitalism is going to be because we have too many Muslims, right? I mean, that's definitely what's going to happen.
Yeah, the president is pandering, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that Fort Knox is the gold supply has been completely depleted.
For some reason.
That's what it says down at the ticker. They never bring up what the reason is. It's just very lightly at the bottom of the screen for like 2 seconds, just so they can move on to the next thing.
Adam Smith was wrong, guys. That's all you need to know.
It's really confusing that the gold would be depleted, because the whole point, I believe, is that the movie is trying to show you what a terrible idea fiat currency is, because as we see in this very scene, the United States is undergoing terrible hyperinflation, and So why would they, and gold, trade of gold and ownership of gold by individuals is illegal. So I'm just confused about this whole mechanism of, I guess the U.S. is spent all of its gold for trade goods, and I'm not clear on
the military is what they keep on mentioning. They mention that there's promises that are made, and they're paying the military, but they're not paying the military as much as they supposedly promised to pay the military. And because they're in debt to the military is how they've run out of gold. That's how the movie describes it.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it clear that they're trading in gold, because the whole problem that the movie's trying to suppose is that
that should be a word.
That should be a word. Is that they're not backing anything with gold, and that's the problem.
Yeah. And the whole contrast that they have is that the main character, Elliot's dad, played by Kevin Sorbo, won the Nobel Peace Prize in economics the year before because he single-handedly convinced all of Europe to convert to a limited government gold economy infrastructure.
And now there's a golden age in Europe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is something Matt said to me, too, is that by setting this up like this, by setting up that our main character's dad won a Nobel Prize and saved Europe, it's basically just declared that this way is fundamentally the only correct way of organizing government, and therefore everyone else is intrinsically wrong. And that's how the movie carries on like that. So as we've established that, and then we're moving on. So it doesn't even have to really discuss the details of this economic idea, because it's already established that it's the right one. So we don't need to talk about that part.
No. The only thing that I wanted you to mention, Matt, just for the listeners for a second, because we don't want to be as bad as the movie. So I really apologize if it's difficult to do in a short time. But fiat currency, just to lightly touch on that for people.
It's just the idea that you have a currency that is not backed by any other asset. So for most of the United States history, you could redeem U.S. dollars for gold, and the exchange rate of dollars to gold was fixed. So in a sense, a dollar was just something where the value of a dollar would always be precisely tied to the value of gold, and gold was a pretty stable commodity, and it is a fairly stable commodity over time. And at a certain point, the United States government stopped using the gold standard. The gold standard means that the gold was the standard against which the dollar was valued. Now it is not valued against anything. It is just a dollar is worth what other people are willing to trade a dollar for, and it's been that way. I believe Nixon did that. I should know that as a person that I am. But yeah, it's lots of people anticipated that going off the gold standard and having a fiat currency, which is most countries have at this point. Most countries have a currency where they just print money, and trade is based on what you will trade for it. People were afraid that there would become like instant hyperinflation. They basically the thinking was like, if it's not tied to gold, then what is it worth? And this betrays a profound ignorance of fairly simple economics concepts, really. But it's the only way you can really get hyperinflation is if either your economy tanks or you just print way more money than your economy can support, and that's not. Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. I lived in a country that had hyperinflation, but that was not because they were not tied to the gold standard. There were other reasons.
And that in and of itself, brings up a point with one of the weird facts that this movie, came out when it did in 2013, is because the book was written in 1979. And so it was written, in a specific point of view. When people were first backing the idea of the agorism, which is a libertarian social philosophy that advocates the creating of a society in which all relations between people deals with, voluntary exchanges, which in a way, and I'm using air quotes, but it does mean it, it deals with counter economics. But that was being set up in like 74 and 75. So like that mindset of the time dovetailing into this book kind of makes sense. If you extrapolate that and then put that in 2013, if your mode of thinking is exactly the same and hasn't changed at all, then, well, what's the definition of insanity, everybody?
Yes. Well,
yeah, but
we never really tried libertarianism.
Yeah, and there's still people that claim that this is right around the corner, that the future envisioned in this movie is destined to happen because we're continuing this government involvement, we're continuing the printing and spending of money and involving ourselves in like the things that Sorbo goes through in his little rant, like wars overseas, and I mean this is like
hey, Scott or Matt, do you guys ever have trouble sleeping at night?
No.
Oh. Scott, do you ever have trouble sleeping at night?
Yeah, sometimes. I'm interested to see where you're going with this.
Do you ever happen to flip through the channels late at night?
No. I'm on Netflix.
Oh, okay. Because if you happen to, flip through the channels, choose any night of the week, basically, there's a good chance that you're going to come across a televangelist on TV. And a televangelist, probably at the same time in 1974, 1975, 1979, 2013, probably tonight, they usually come on around like 11:45 or midnight, are going to tell you that based on the events that are happening in the world, it's the sign that the end of days are at hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not. I'm not putting stock in either one, but just because people completely say that something's destined, if you're saying that something's destined continually for 40 years, then it's one of those that there's a certain point, if you're doing it with a high level of fervency, that somebody should probably tap you on the shoulder and go, you've got some good points, but maybe dial it down a notch.
It's getting closer every day. I mean, like Ron Paul, a lot of the stuff echoed in this movie I've heard in Ron Paul's speeches before, and that's fitting because one of his speeches is
Ron Paul's in the movies,
spliced into the movie. And I legitimately didn't know if they just had him record a new speech for the film or if he was just talking about America, like they just pulled a Ron Paul speech, because that's the way Ron Paul talks all the time.
Yeah.
For the first 2 seconds, I thought that it was an actual one like that, and then they had that weird angle that cut to the side, but it wasn't like a side view that they do on TV. It was a side view of somebody trying to shoot a presidential shot in a movie. Like you would see Morgan Freeman in Deep Impact standing that way. And that's when I realized, oh, Ron Paul just took one of his speeches that he already had, and they filmed it because it matches up with the movie. And it's just in the background of a scene because Elliot, smartest kid at school and everything, finds out that his dad has died of a heart attack that morning. He instantly has flashbacks to different times with his dad, which also includes seeing his dad winning the Nobel Peace Prize and one of the cheapest like special effects that you could do. If you're gonna flash back, decide if you're able to afford it. If you can't afford the scene that you want to flash back to, don't do it. Just don't. Just cut the corner.
But
move on to the next thing.
I mean, the best one is the zip cord.
Yeah.
You mean the zip cord that only goes 5 yards?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the best memories of his life with his dad include ziplining about 5 yards.
Yep.
And firing handguns at a shooting range.
Yep.
That's it.
2 shots.
Those are
2 shots. That's it.
But
those are important libertarian activities.
Yes.
So
ziplining is apparently a very important libertarian activity because we go back to it 3 times. And here's the thing that doesn't make sense to me, though. Spoilers: his dad's not dead, and he knows
his dad's
this.
not dead.
So why is he flashing back to memories of his father like he just died? movie. What are you doing?
And the dad informs them, even though they already know why he's doing this, he still decides to tell them that FEMA warrants for his arrest have been laid out. Now, that brings up another idea that we can't really work around it, because it's something at this point that's kind of common knowledge. It's something that's been joked about in the in the Simpsons movie years ago. It was made before 2013, where they jump on the belief that lots of people have, as well as the conspiracy theory about FEMA being the entity that will rise to become a true police state one day.
Yeah, I didn't realize that libertarians hated FEMA so much until I watched this movie. That was eye-opening.
Basically, FEMA serves as a convenient boogeyman of the deep state, because it's one of those things where there's nothing in the Constitution that looks anything like what FEMA is. And so, obviously, if you were a tyrant, then you would use all of the completely unfettered, not constitutionally constrained power that such an agency would give you to mount your coup. And that's obviously a very practical and pragmatic concern, and it was of course what happens in this movie.
Well, you know what they always say is that you have to be, wary of the quiet ones. And when it comes to a government organization that's proved inept several times in the past, that's clearly because they're tricking you into a false sense of security for when they take over.
Yeah.
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 Laissez-faire.
Laissez-faire. Which is said probably 75 different times in the movie.
It's not like a very subtle slogan, though.
Yeah.
Like, if you were really trying to hunt down all the evil cadre and you just heard people in the street saying laissez-faire, that'd be a pretty good clue.
Can we?
Yes.
Can we? I know I don't know how we track time here, but I just want to mention that this movie wants you to think somehow that you're in a dystopian future.
Yes.
But they do absolutely nothing.
Wait, Matt.
To any setting that would make you think that anything were happening other than like we're just outside.
I don't think you're being fair. I don't think you're being fair, because when he leaves school, there are 2 FEMA agents who have riot shields and helmets that have sirens on the side of them.
And there's the sound.
Clearly in the future.
Sound
we don't have that.
I forgot about
We don't have that technology right now. We don't have the technology to be able to blare a fire truck siren while red and blue lights are spinning by people's heads, and for them to A, not go deaf, and B, not have a seizure and die in the process.
They were just chasing someone.
Yeah. The weirdest part to me is they, like, when they get to the cadre's main headquarters, and his teacher is talking to one of the other guys, and he's like, "How's it going?" "Good. My kid got into George Mason next year." And I'm like, we were just talking about how there might not even be a civilization next year. Like, I don't understand what's happening.
Okay, I don't. I know plenty of schools around the country. I've heard of George Mason. Could somebody explain to me what it is about agorists or libertarians and their love for George Mason University in this film?
I don't have this knowledge at my fingertips, but it appears that the Koch brothers are involved in George Mason in some way, and there's so there it seems to be a school with a significant economics department and a significant libertarian economics department. So you get the sense that this is probably a university that serves as a sort of think tank for libertarian thought, and people who want to donate their money to such things will donate to George Mason, and thus people with libertarian leanings will go there, and you get one of these strange attractor things, and you end up with a very weirdly libertarian leaning school. And
it's insane to the degree. Like, laissez-faire is one thing, and then mentioning the revolutionary Goris cadre 5,000 times is another thing. But then mentioning George Mason like 50 different times is the thing that's such a weird disconnect, because you're like, hold on a second. You're not explaining the George Mason connection, or it's why it's basically your Harvard or your Princeton.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I think this movie is just for people that already exist in these circles to like pat each other on the back, because they would get these references.
Yeah.
And
that's
you know, to be, this is more credit than the movie deserves, but
oh god,
you probably did at least think that you should look up some of these things that you weren't familiar with, which begins the inception process. I mean, 6 months from now, you're going to be libertarian, because
because I had to ask about George Mason. They mentioned it 5,000 different times, and I didn't. Now I'm going to do something we do a couple times on the show, because this is an extremely dense film, but there's lots of discussion about the weirdness to take place. So I'm going to run through lots of the plot points. You guys can jump in on it, and then we'll have a larger discussion to round things out, because we do want to kind of give an overview of what's happening. Because if you mention it very quickly, it's easy to get through, but also makes the movie sound boring, which both is and isn't true. So Elliot gets home, talks to his dad, his mom, and his sister, and the mom mentions cryptically, why is he going to have to be the one who goes away? And the dad just kind of shakes it off. The dad says, hey, I need you to go to this bookstore and get something for me. Goes to the bookstore. First of all, the guy who runs the bookstore, who's then seen in a whole bunch of different scenes and is an agent for the cadre, is played by the guy who wrote the book and directed and everything else.
Yeah, can I just say he looks like exactly like you would think someone that has this belief system would look like. I don't want to be mean, but exactly. It was the least surprised revelation in this entire movie to me.
If you took George R.R. Martin and Gallagher and combined them.
That's kind of mean to George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, that's pretty mean to George R.R. Martin. But
no. But I'm saying, but the way he dresses looks like George R.R. Martin without the suspenders.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's what I'm saying.
Let's just say that your first thought when you see this character is like, oh, this character is a parody of a libertarian neckbeard, and
no, he's one of the fathers of the libertarian.
He's the founding father of the libertarian neckbeards.
Yeah, right, exactly.
He's in the Ron Paul interview that I mentioned. He actually starts by saying, "Well, you know, Ron, I actually started out by working for the libertarian media way back in the day." That anybody who's proud of that,
Congrats.
you know, is like, that's going to be their entire lifeline. But so he sees him. He gets a belt that has a whole bunch of gold coins because of the whole fact that his father, put that economic system into power in Europe, and in America, as we mentioned, it's basically illegal to own gold because of the standards and the way trade and everything is. He ends up going back home, finds out that his family isn't there, is tailed by 2 FEMA agents, escapes, goes over to his friend who owns the moped's house, whose uncle just happens to used to be a Mossad agent, who also happens to be part of the cadre. They say that they're actually working in league with his father, and that he is being sent to the auxiliary, which is an underground place that's run by the cadre. While he's there, he ends up seeing that the headmaster of his school is part of the system. He meets a girl. They go to the mall. We'll get into that afterwards. Turns out that she might be a double agent, and you find this out when he casually decides to go home after 3 days, and his dad is now back there. There's a whole bunch of weirdness with the the FEMA director coming over to his house because, it turns out maybe the cadre is bad, or, maybe FEMA's still bad, and, who really cares? And so the kid goes back to the cadre, and the cadre basically decides, hey, we want to make a big stand against FEMA, basically show everybody how terrible they are. Turns out that they have what's both labeled as a concentration camp / luxury prison called Utopia, where a whole bunch of high-ranking individuals are being held against their will. They stage a plan to basically break in, but the plan is to just expose and show that FEMA has this prison, and it doesn't really matter to them who dies. There's a whole bunch of nonsense that goes on in there. The building ends up exploding, and then the movie basically ends.
Okay. Isn't most of his family in this hotel?
No.
They got out somehow.
This is
when did they get out?
When they show up, when they bring him and the girl Lorimir to, when they bring them, because it's basically the bargaining chip so that they can get in, so that the cadre can take over and hack into the system and broadcast it to everybody, is they use him as a chip. But the second that he shows up, the FEMA agent who's been tracking him the whole time goes, the director can't seem to make up his mind. He just let your family go before you even got here. And then the kid goes, so they're not here? And the whole point of the movie is one of those where everybody writes a really complicated plot, but about 15 minutes into the movie, if the main characters just stay where they are, don't leave and go anywhere else, things are going to end up working out a lot better than they actually do. Because he runs off 3 different times because he can't find people, and it turns out that everybody's basically let go or ends up back home while he's running around.
There's actually a good chance that the luxury hotel containing all the prisoners wouldn't have been destroyed, killing all the prisoners, if he hadn't tried to break into it.
Right, that's what happens, right? The prison explodes, and everyone in it dies.
The prison explodes, and the whole thing that they mention when one of the agents, who the entire reason they send this agent on the mission is they say, they have an agent that works at the hotel, or at the hotel prison, who looks convincingly the same as our guy.
Yeah, it says they're Asian.
Yeah,
right.
That's basically because they never show the guy.
Movie. Yeah. It's like this. The ending, of course, the ending doesn't make any sense.
No,
they've already hacked into the feed and exposed the existence of the prison. So why the bad guy decides to blow it up doesn't make any sense.
Sacrificing his life to do so, and then being like, it's really important to me that you save this baby that's here for some reason. I don't care about the fact that I'm dooming my kids. I don't care about the fact that I'm dooming 100 people, but save this baby while I murder suicide all these other people.
I don't have
it's the weirdest thing ever.
I don't have to press the self-destruct button. Literally nothing is making me press this button. But
hey, by the way, I just want you to know, you're a pretty good kid.
That was
kills
the weird,
everybody.
It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
It was only stupider than the only thing stupider was the assassination attempt at the end, which
because directly after the building explodes and everything, now that they've let people know that, hey, there was this building, but we didn't save the people inside except for one baby and everybody died, aren't the people who put that building together, which were, not terrible hotel rooms that they have everybody in, that if you're going to be in a prison, that's not too bad,
Yeah,
I know that's a weird thing to say, but it was. They even said that it was a luxury prison called Utopia. But the next scene has them giving a press conference, which I have one of my favorite notes here, where the guy who was the headmaster ends up making the comment that where is it? He said, "We will not pass on a statement of our goals and desires, and I'll direct you towards the folios I passed out earlier."
Yeah, which just feels like we don't actually know what we believe in.
Exactly. And so they mentioned that they're all there, and they say that this is going to be the first of many discussions that they're going to have to let the world know that they exist. Even the world already knows that they exist. And the director of FEMA has dressed up in like the worst crepe hair beard and wig that you can think of, and does the old 70s thing of, hey, look, I've got this oversized camcorder. I secretly have a gun in the back of it. And then a whole bunch of people stand up, and the main character shoots him in the head, and his quasi-girlfriend walks up next to him and says exactly like this, "Thank you. You just killed my father."
The end.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends.
It was amazing.
Not entirely the end, though, because first we have to go ziplining again, but with the girl this time.
Now the girl's there, and it's shot on the exact same day because the outfits are the same as the flashback. It's just now they pulled to a wide shot so that you could see that this is what he was doing.
Maybe he was seeing the future at the beginning of the movie.
Could be.
We haven't considered the idea that perhaps he's a precog. Like, that would really change a lot about this movie.
It would.
So I need to talk about the mall.
Yeah, let's talk about the mall. The libertarian dream as represented by Mall.
So, like, that was... You wouldn't have to change very much to make that a pretty funny comedy sequence. Because they're cutting between... They're cutting between the kids going to a series of these like stores or booths or whatever.
Yeah.
Which are all increasingly ridiculous and have like weird looking characters with kind of strange behaviors that you're like, is this comedy? Because I know these people do believe that these types of stores should exist, but they're casting them with people who clearly think that they're supposed to be seeming ridiculous when they do it.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing.
That's the note that I made, is that it's one of the big issues with the movie in general, is that the movie, while it's very set in its beliefs, it also hates everything else that exists in opposition to it. Now, in a way, you can make that work if you're making those things seem like satirical or farcical, but you have to understand what you have to be able to do that. And just having something seem ridiculous doesn't make it, farcical or satirical.
No, but that's the thing that I don't understand, is those are things that they actually believe
in. Yeah. And if you look into it, the majority of those people, while they might not have those businesses, are actual people who, as Matt said, believe in it. And so It's people who they're coming across as weird, possibly because they're not traditional actors, which it's no offense to them whatsoever. They're basically doing what they're told, and they're being paid for it, and they're doing the best they can. The biggest issue with this scene, and I think that it's what Matt possibly wanted to talk about, and I have the entire thing written out. If it's what you're talking about, Matt, is the ones. Are you talking about the gun store, or are you talking about the guy store?
They're all
of it.
Wonderful. They're all they go to a store where a guy tries to sell them a nuclear weapon.
Yes.
Tells them they're going to have to buy the yellow cake down the street, though.
Is he doing a Christopher Walken impression, that guy? I think he is.
Okay, he is, but he isn't, because I wrote that down. But here's the interesting, because I thought it was that way until the very end of his speaking, because the talking cuts off, but you can see the guy's goatee chin popping out from underneath when he's still talking. So that's an ADR voice that's doing a Christopher Walken impression.
That's great.
Which is even weirder. But what I wanted to hit upon was the sex store scene. Because the sex store scene, like, just reading what's coming out, it made me sad that we didn't have Vivian on for this episode, because I so wanted to know what her view of that store and then the gun store was. And then I'll tell you what I found out about this individual that made me go, this movie is on another level.
Well, he owns the Bunny Ranch, right? That's the Bunny Ranch guy.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's a whole bunch of stuff. That's funny, but I'll make it very fast. So they see the store that says sex pro-life on the outside of it, which is sure to get anybody's attention. So they walk in, and the guy just basically starts giving them a sermon. No one else is in the store except for him and these 3 women that are with him. And he says, sex is pro-life and part of God's plan. The social God damn it, now I can't read this word. The social
Contract.
Social contract, anti-porn, anti-prostitution position is right out of the Anti-Sex League in George Orwell's 1984. It's a Soviet mindset designed to put the individual's most personal chances under government control, and the male urge is designed to be excessive, precisely to secure the survival of the human species. Both prostitution and pornography serve God's first commandment: be fruitful and multiply. Someday, Heidi Fleiss's call girl ring will be seen by the feminists as the implementation of a woman's right to own her body.
That makes a whole lot of sense.
That's his entire thing. And this is when they're going up to other people and just having very, very short conversations. And then they walk into this room or store, and the guy gives this whole speech. As Scott mentioned, if you look this guy up, he's wearing a hat that says Bunny Ranch, and he's a guy who owns 7 different legal brothels in Nevada. And also Las Vegas. It's like throughout Nevada, basically, not just Las Vegas. And he was also part of a reality TV series, but I can't find out what channel it's on. I don't know if it was
HBO.
MTV. It was on HBO.
I mean, I didn't watch it. What are you talking about?
Yeah. He's gone on record several times saying that he only that he won't date civilians, aka non-working girls. He only dates prostitutes. He's made this comment in a whole bunch of different interviews. He was a partner for a long time, off and on, possibly still is, with Heidi Fleiss. He backed Ron Paul for president in 2008 and 2012. In 2015, he declared that he was a libertarian. But in 2016, he came out as being a quote-unquote Trump Republican.
Of course. I'm sure Trump has visited his establishment many times.
Yeah.
But it's just in the middle of the movie that they put this in, and they have this guy who's spouting it. The thing is, since this guy's existing and everything in 2013, he did not exist when this book was coming out. And so they have several characters like this who are presented either on backgrounds and screens like Ron Paul or other people who have no connection to the book outside of being libertarian, that it has this weird disconnect.
So this guy basically wanted to populate this mall with actual people from the real world who represent different libertarian positions. I mean, is this accurate?
Yeah. Yeah,
I
think so.
Yeah, from what it seems, except for the fact is that the main character and his quasi girlfriend insult almost everybody. Only people that they don't insult this guy at the sex pro-life store, and they don't insult anybody at the gun store.
Well, honestly, the sex pro-life store is the least problematic of the stores that they go to.
Yeah, agreed.
It's that's actually a fairly mainstream position, honestly. It's the selling nuclear weapons and having no restrictions on selling drugs, etc.
Yeah. The nuclear weapon is basically a punchline, because when they're at the gun store, he then makes a comment, "Oh, what are you going to take me to a place that?" Or he's like, "What are you next? You're going to tell me they sell nukes here?" And then they end up in the nuke store. And the guy who owns the nuke store is like, "Well, I don't sell, the plutonium. Technically, you got to go to the other store on the mezzanine, and the guy will take care of you there." The
best joke is that there's like a 2-week waiting period to get your plutonium or whatever, which is obviously a joke. Like that is a that is a mildly, actually funny joke with the setup and everything. So it is weird that they're choosing to make fun of like certain positions that they're showing, but then the rest of them are portrayed as correct, but you're not clear which are which. That's why the whole thing is so surreal.
Yeah, this is actually why I think this movie is wonderful, because in an effort to build the case for this economic and government worldview, they have inadvertently completely undermined it, because the movie is so tonally dissonant from everything it wants to do that it ends up painting the things that they believe and the things that they think about as absurd and stupid and ridiculous. And yes. I don't get why they did it, but I love that they did it, because I came away from this movie just being more convinced than ever that these ideas, the economic ideas, government ideas, were ridiculous. Because obviously, like saying, hey, when someone says, oh, so I could sell this heroin to a kid at the school down the street, and he says, yeah, but please don't. That, like, I mean, that's absurd. And that's why I love it. I love it so much.
Right. That kind of stuff is like Verhoeven RoboCop level satire, where you're like, oh, I get it, but it's not hitting me over the head with it. And then the horror dawns on you and you realize, no, I don't get it, because it's not satire.
Yeah. And like that's what you think it's a joke. And yet if you were able to talk to, I probably wouldn't want to ask this guy this question, but because it feels like if you asked him, then he'd be like, no, that's a joke. And here, if you have 45 minutes, let me explain to you why. Well, and
I think it's not even just the mall scene, though, because like,
no.
Elliot Vreeland as a character is this like annoying, whiny, wimpy kid that the movie is trying to hold up as this like great savior of libertarianism and the world, and he just comes off as terrible. And I
was going to say not only that, but then like I mentioned, it feels like they're mad at everybody because they lash out to people on both the left and right. There's a scene where he's walking around at night just because he doesn't know where to go, and he ends up seeing the prostitute basically, and she ends up coming up to him and is trying to get with him, and his comment that he makes to her is he goes, "Oh, are you turning tricks because you got fired from Fox News?" And you're like, I think that's a joke, but I'm not entirely sure why it's a joke in the context that you're presenting it. And then if you look into things a little bit more, the person that they cast in that part is going to be probably, outside of like Kevin Sorbo and the people from Star Trek, the next most popular person. Because do either of you guys watch the show Parks and Rec?
Yes.
No.
Scott, that's Brandy Max.
No way.
Yes. The prostitute in the movie is played by Brandy Max from Parks and Rec, who is an individual who continually makes more and more XXX features as the series goes on, and she starts out as calling herself a local businesswoman, and then by the time the show has ended, is actually on city council in the future, because she continually says that she emulates herself as Leslie Knope. But it was really weird that you're like, so somebody who played a porn star and this, and had this weird, almost comical view of how they saw the world and everything, is now a literal prostitute in your film.
She's also in Chips. We keep coming back to Chips, Adrian.
That's not. I will go to George Mason University before I see Chips.
Yeah, but I think that's my feeling of this, is that so much of this stuff is just so badly done that it backfires, and it's great.
Elliot, in their moment of trying to show him being intellectual and pithy, they're talking about, he and his friend are talking about a girl who has the hots for Elliot, because of course everybody does. And he says, if she can't see the difference the difference between my father's limited government approach and the cadre's all-out anarchism, then she isn't going to impress me.
Let me adjust my fedora.
And that's how it feels in a lot of movies. Like they're lashing out at both things that the movie's supposed to be holding up as being, the paragon of the future, and then anything that's opposed to it, but they're presented in like the exact same light and have the same jokes cast to them. So you're like, well, but this seems like the thing that you're backing, but now you're making fun of that thing, unless I'm completely reading it incorrectly.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Matt, maybe you can answer this for me.
Okay.
The end of the movie has the teacher staring at the First Amendment. And then he ominously, and I say ominously because the music makes it seem ominous, crosses out everything but Congress shall make no law. Is that supposed to be ominous, or is that the ideal solution? I don't understand what the movie's trying to say.
I thought that was amazing also. So I mean, if you're an anarchist, then you think that Congress shall make no law is exactly what you should be going for. That's I don't believe that's what I don't believe that's nothing like a mainstream libertarian position. And a lot of the characters in the movie are like stalwart constitutionalists. So the idea of crossing out part of the Constitution because you feel like it would be sacrilege. So to me, like I 40% read that as like, oh, so he's gonna like try to be a tyrant now. But I was like, oh, wait, is he someone who has the power to try to be a tyrant? Or wait, is he gonna be the kind of tyrant who makes it so that there's no government? Doesn't make sense.
Matt, here's my question to you. Was Thomas Jefferson a tyrant?
Don't believe so.
Well, because that's kind of a key, because they do quote Thomas Jefferson at least 7 different times in the film.
Well, but
don't they say the blood of liberty must be watered by patriots and tyrants, and then they add like it's its preferred fuel source or something like that? It was such a weird phrasing.
Yeah, that's later on when they go back to it, and it's like, wait, that's not exactly what you said. I think I have the quote that he said. Yeah. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants.
Right.
And then after the building blows up at the end, after the who are thought to be the bad guys explode the building, they go to the chopper shot of the other guy who's in charge of it, and he says, "The blood of tyrants and patriots." And it's like, I don't think of it that way. When
they mostly killed patriots.
Yeah.
It's like regardless of what you think, anytime there's like 110 people who die in a situation where I could have saved them, I never think the blood of tyrants and patriots.
Also, I'm 100% sure that all the wide shots of the helicopter was just a toy helicopter.
It looks like it. Also, I'm pretty sure if you're constantly watering a tree with blood of people, that tree's gonna die.
That's what trees crave.
Yeah, it's got a lot of iron.
I thought it was supposed to be electrolyte, Scott.
Well, yeah, that was the reference, but I was changing it.
Do you think that Brondo would exist in a society like this?
Yeah, if people want it, then laissez-faire.
Yeah, laissez-faire.
Well, I mean, if somebody created it through a natural process and was freely giving it away, as opposed to like a large company like Brondo giving,
If they were freely giving it away, the libertarians would not like it.
The big companies are fine in this framework.
Yeah.
Well, but they have to have, they have to be there be something that they're trading for it.
Yeah, gold.
Gold, yeah.
Or old minted coins.
Yeah.
I knew long ago that, when I was up late at night and I saw that special edition coins and $50 cent pieces were being sold for $20 on TV, that I should have cashed in.
Hey, Matt, isn't the idea of an anarchist bank inherently contradictory?
It's First Anarchist Bank, okay, Scott? They're just getting into the business.
I'm sorry.
That's what's funny is I'm moderately well educated about these ideas, but I still couldn't tell you what the thesis of this movie was. Like, what is it? I mean, I can probably tell you the thesis of V for Vendetta better than I can tell you the thesis of this movie. Like, that's another movie that's vaguely libertarian, but like, I can tell you what flavor of libertarian that is. This movie is, they like the gold standard. I know that. That's about all I can say for certain, because they're so all over the place.
It contradicts itself, right? Because, like, in the line that Adrian read a few minutes ago, it made it seem clear that our surrogate character is not for this whole anarchist free society thing. He's just a limited government person who believes in the Constitution, but believes it's supposed to be limited and thinks we should have our money backed by something. But yet the movie also seems to support these other ideologies when it's convenient.
That's true. Yeah. So that's a good point. That is the movie is so unclear that it's easy to forget that there's actually this conflict between the evil FEMA fascists and the radical agorists, who are actually portrayed as going too far, and the main character, you're right, him and his dad are not comfortable with it. The movie tries to act like this is a delicate chess game where they have to play these two sides off of each other, but all they actually do is they kill a bunch of people.
Wait, a chess game? Hold on a second. I'm connecting the dots with this movie because I believe a character literally says, "So we were all just pawns all along."
Checkmate.
Well, and it's so funny. Like, Sorbo says, like, whichever one is the one that took my family, I know they'll have picked my side for me. The other one.
What does he follow that up 30 seconds later with?
I don't remember.
He says it means either one or both of us is being played.
Yeah, so, like, Sorbo sides with the cadre literally just because they're against the people that stole his family, not because he agrees with them on some kind of intellectual level.
He agrees with them after he's agreed with them after he's already agreed to be with FEMA, because FEMA said that they were in the process of getting his wife and daughter back, which they technically do succeed in because they release them from the prison camp.
Yeah, but they just assisted the cadre into getting power, who is apparently going to just remove words from the First Amendment.
Now, while Ron Paul does show up, and there are various ideas that actually exist in the real world, and that there are individuals who are real, who are in the movie, there's one building that sticks out because of the name and the giant plaque that they have outside of it. Do you guys remember what that was called?
Is that the sweet Al Gore burn?
The Al Gore Global Carbon Reduction Facility?
Yeah.
Yes, that was wonderful.
I guess they don't like Al Gore very much?
Like they throw him under the bus 2 to 3 different times in the movie. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're just swingingly wildly, and it's like, okay, these are the beliefs of agorism, but we're not going to discuss that. Here are the beliefs of libertarianism, but we're only going to, agree to a certain subset of it. Here's other things we don't like in the world. People who drink Diet Coke, you're stupid. People who like red shirts, you should go to hell. Like, it just starts just waving its arms, and they're like, what's other government or political ideas we can lash out at?
Well, I mean, Al Gore wants the government to solve climate change, so it makes sense that they would be against that.
It's quite a masterstroke, really.
He should let the people to do it.
It's quite a masterstroke.
Well, yes, he should let people solve their own coordination problems. But I mean, the reason, not only are they showing the so-called carbon reduction facility is actually just a prison, and implying that Al Gore is a scam artist, which is, and that's all consistent. They're basically just taking swipes at anybody who is in favor of any kind of regulation whatsoever, or any kind of monetary policy that isn't gold. I mean, the idea behind a gold-based currency is that it's just trade. It's not even it's not even a national currency that you're using anymore.
Well, okay, but getting to something deeper, and we'll find like maybe one more sticking point to talk out, so we don't go too long. But it's a weird comparison that's been sticking in my mind while we're talking. As we keep on going on about it, it's something that bothers me even more. The type of movies that try to talk about things that are possibly topical at the time, while also swatting away other things that they don't really agree or believe in, usually end up being movies like The Disaster Movie or Meet the Spartans, like joking spoof movies, not a movie that's supposed to be based on a book. And that's the most interesting thing about this film to talk about on a critical level, is that this movie's supposed to be an adaptation of this book that was written years ago. As far as I know, he hasn't completely revised the book in the last 30 years and put it out being like, well, this completely reflects how things are nowadays. The book stayed the same since 1979. And it's understandable if there's certain elements that you want to update, but if you wrote a book that was supposed to take place in the future, anyways, then you can change the date so that you set it more in the future if that hasn't normally passed. But the movie directly calls out 1984, and 1984, both the book and then the movie, are presented in a way of still making it feel like it is a future or, some other alternate, future that happened.
I think I can clarify a bit of this by saying this book was always just a ripoff of Atlas Shrugged in the first place.
Yeah.
and Atlas Shrugged has this, trench coat 40s and 30s aesthetic that the main character is employing. And that is also a story where it's quote unquote like the present day. There's no future tech relative to when the book was written, but also it's like not actually Earth. It's got a much worse civilizational decline because of the United States' failure to adhere to capitalist values. And basically this is Atlas Shrugged fanfic, where instead of the characters of Atlas Shrugged solving the situation, it's the 16-year-old, because that's how old this guy probably was when he wrote it. And also he happened to be reading a lot more about the gold standard, so he just threw that in there too. I mean, it's really quite like the first until it just goes completely to shit in the second half. I was just like, oh, they're just retreading Atlas Shrugged with some more secret agent motifs.
But the difference is, like I said, they spend all this time trying to have current day things that aren't necessarily in the book, and by featuring current day people, to distract from that it's basically, oh, well, here's the basic plot outline of the book, and then here's all these other things that we want to cover, which isn't really, adapting the book. Even if you see the movie versions of Atlas Shrugged, which I'm pretty sure you probably have, is that as weird and off-putting as those movies can be, they're still adapting the book. They're not taking, side steps to put, modern day elements in there because they think that might be kitschy or because it's, things that they want to discuss. And if we're talking about it being Atlas Shrugged fanfic, then of course the first thing that at least comes to my mind, probably not your guys's, is the 50 Shades of Grey being fanfic of Twilight. And as bad as those books are, and as absolutely terrible as those films are, they still are, adapting that story without having the asides. And so that's where I think this movie, and you guys might disagree, and that's totally fine, and I'm interested to hear that, is that to me, part of the reason that this movie has such a problem and comes off as a bad movie is because it doesn't really adhere to being an adaptation.
Well, I would probably argue that the book is just as bad. I haven't read it, but I can imagine. My guess is if you asked the filmmaker, he would say he wanted to take his 40-year-old adaptation and update it a little bit
Yeah,
to make it more in line with modern times.
Yeah, like if you if you watch a Tom Clancy movie, usually they update the military tech in the movie to whatever the modern military tech is. You know, it's just kind of a. I get it.
They don't stop and have a general from the army discuss their personal beliefs.
Well, yeah, but this is a bad movie.
It's a bad movie.
Probably.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's a possible way to adapt this book as just a book, as opposed to this version of it and this way of adapting it is what I'm saying. You know, it's
yeah. I mean,
it doesn't mean that it's going to be better, but it might be more competent or focused at least.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the only way this could have been good is if they went way off the map. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, it just makes it for half of this conversation, I've been like remembering about the possibility that Zack Snyder would make a Fountainhead movie.
Yep.
And I would love him to make a Fountainhead movie that was like all him. Like I don't care if he's faithful at all, because first of all, that is a story that only works if you like let yourself give it the kind of magical realism that it's going for. And Zack Snyder is this filmmaker with this visual vision that is very unique, and I think he's the perfect guy to just take that
it's not
run with it.
going to happen though.
That's a shame.
Well, no, the reason that I'm saying that is because the version that was most likely to get made and potentially be the best version of it is the one that was so close to being an actual movie and then ended up falling apart. And that, of course, Scott, do you know which one I'm talking about before the Zack Snyder one?
Nuh-uh.
The one that was going to have Brad Pitt as the lead?
Yeah, but was that going to have Zack Snyder directing it?
No, because it was going to have Darren Aronofsky.
Oh,
well, that'd be
that could have been all right.
That's what I'm saying. Aronofsky directing Brad Pitt in The Fountainhead. You're going to have somebody who's going to have a singular, an interesting vision of it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I still think Snyder would. I still think Snyder's better suited for it because Snyder actually believes in it. I'm pretty sure Aronofsky doesn't.
Can I just say something about the Fountainhead?
Yes.
If you're hiring a person to do the architecture of your building, and they don't make what you want, it's okay to be mad at them.
No, it's not, Scott.
Because you hired them to do the job.
You're just not understanding.
It's a stupid book, man.
Of what you were given. If you ask for a bicycle and I give you a fishing rod because I understood that your real problem was that you didn't have a fishing rod, then you should be grateful.
Yeah, it's just like, Scott, if you're planning on, doing some sweet arm curls with 10-pound weights, but what you don't have is a sleeveless shirt and a red backwards cap, and the fact that you're also not in politics.
I see what you're doing here.
That's what you want. Because if we really want somebody to direct a movie or co-write a movie with Zack Snyder, then we know what individual is suited for the job.
Good old Paulie Ryan. No, P. Ryan.
I'm a little scared that Matt was silent there. So
I don't understand what's happening.
There's a picture of Paul Ryan doing curls in a backwards cap. It's funny.
In a backwards red cap, and as everybody knows, Paul Ryan is really, really big into Ayn Rand. Oh, except for that time where he said no, he doesn't completely agree with her stuff. But then they also had all the times on record that he mentioned that he was a huge Randian.
I mean, I think every child who reads books is into Ayn Rand at some point in their life. They just grow out of it.
Except for they had him on record the year before he denied saying it, talking about it in an interview on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, the problem is when you don't grow out of it because you're
a
baby man.
Exactly.
I'm all for people having crazy beliefs as long as they can articulate them. And that's the problem with this. Like, I think
exactly.
I'm not being very clear here. I think what I'm trying to say is, doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not. I would love to see somebody make like the Fountainhead, do it well, have it be amazing, even if I've grown out of it, because it's, you know, it's poetry. It's not an argument. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's like, you don't go to the Lord of the Rings for a political essay on the merits of feudalism. That's not what it's about.
Or
and that's
do
not what
you?
the Fountainhead's about either. Yeah, I mean, you could actually, but
Are we talking about the books? Are we talking about theatrical or extended edition? Come on, Matt. You gotta pick a side here.
obviously the books.
Well, there you go. I mean, that depends. Are we going with, you know, the appendices notes that it turned out he had for the stuff that he did cut out of it?
Right
kind
now,
of paints
I'm
a different picture.
just talking about the Lord of the Rings. Right
I
now,
know,
yeah.
but,
In this
but I'm
context.
talking about their, you know, different.
No, I'm just talking about the final published version. Being very specific here. But and that's why this movie is offensive to me. It's not even the beliefs that it's trying to convey; it's the shittiness with which it conveys them.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it.
Yeah, me too. That's why I hate it and love it. Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, it presents presents as a great case, and I think it's, as much as you may dislike the movie, it's one of those that when we vote, I might go a weird way on this, because it's one of those. Even if I would want to vote the movie away, I might want the idea of the film to exist, because it's almost a cautionary tale in a way. It's one of those that if you have lived and breathed something for so long that it has grown and changed with you over so many years, but like the book, the printed version of it is one way, but how it has influenced and seeped into your life makes it viewed a different way, is maybe you should have that slight disconnect. And that there's a reason why when you have lots of books that they're adapted, that they're not always adapted by that person, and they might be on as a consultant to help feed, well, this is the state of mind, this is the viewpoint, and this is how this is tying in, or this was the original intention behind that. And there's another reason why you have really good movies where if your prose is beautiful, lends itself to the screen. So having the person who wrote the novel work in conjunction with the director and adapt it themselves, that you get this marriage of the art form, as opposed to here with the time that it's been since the book came out, the constantly changing views of the individual who's behind the camera, and the fact that they not only are supposedly, and I'm using air quotes, adapting the book, but then also having it be something that all of a sudden their friends are coming into. And as opposed to it being like a literal adaptation, you have what essentially becomes a hangout film that other people who are trying to act in the movie might not realize is going in that direction.
Yeah. I definitely agree that adaptations should. I don't know. That's an interesting point, actually. The idea that an adaptation should not be done by the person who did the original.
No.
I think it's probably true, but I'm not sure why I agree with that.
I think it is and it isn't. It's one of those that if you go on to do like a whole bunch of other books and it's like, but this is your seminal thing. Like, of course, you're talking about the Fountainhead, but there's a reason why the Fountainhead hasn't necessarily been adapted yet compared to when they attempted to do Atlas Shrugged. And they did Atlas Shrugged in 3 parts. And it's different because that writer has, you know, several books that are out. I haven't checked Schulman's stuff, but it seems like in a way that this is the very fiber of his being, and he's not able to, like, just the belief system and everything behind it. And it seems like he can't really disconnect from what's specifically in the book to what he believes in the everyday. Yeah,
well, he's not really I mean, this is probably super mean, but he's not really a craftsman of either book or film. He just happened to write a book when he was young, and then he got the money to write a film because he was serving a niche audience with the book that liked it despite its quality. I mean, yeah, it's
which goes back to what I was mentioning, and I know it's a weird example again, but the 50 Shades of Grey element, with the fact that the person who was doing that, you know, the fan fiction, wasn't a writer, you know, themselves, but they felt that this piece was so important to them and was such a part of their life and the characters that they think about even when they're not writing it. And she's not going on and writing other things, but she decided after the first movie, no, I'm the person who needs to be doing the script. I need to be adapting it because I live with these characters in my head every day. Kind of the way that Schulman's like, no, this is an ever growing thing for me. And it's like, okay, there's you know, there's that disconnect. And that's why I'm saying that it would have been interesting had this been a project where he's the one who he does an adaptation, and then maybe they have like a second version of the script where they have a script doctor come in and patch things over, and then somebody else is directing.
Oh yeah,
I'd be interested to see what happens in that. And that's why I'm saying that this is, I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of like it's an exhibit that you want to hold up saying this is how it can go wrong.
Yeah. No, I definitely would have been better if anyone else had had a creative stake in this, because it would have diluted a lot of the self-indulgent bullshit that we've been referencing this whole time. Yeah. And you have reminded me that they did in fact make a movie of the Fountainhead in 1949, which I haven't seen. And
King Vidor.
Now I want to watch it.
Yeah, I'm curious what that looks like.
It's different.
It's got Gary Cooper.
It's different because King Vidor was somebody who he didn't do like 5,000 movies in the time that he was directing, but he worked in what at the time would have been considered like big budget movies. Like he was somebody who his movies were always costing like millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, the guy's name is King Vidor, you know, so it put a stamp on there, you know, like he did The Big Parade, The Crowd, Duel in the Sun. He worked on big productions. If you go down his list and you see him, that like there's a lot, some good, some bad, but like lots of the movies that he was making cost a great deal of money for that period of time that he was working in, and it was the same way with the Fountainhead, kind of, because like the Fountainhead was, I think, like $2 million to make in like 1949 money.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very appropriate too.
Yeah, so like that's why it's a weird movie. You can tell that they're taking some like corners that they're cutting because it's 1949, but at the same time you're like, there's a Fountainhead movie that was made in 1949 for $2 million. That's insane.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I'm totally gonna watch that now. Where
Go
can I
for
watch
it.
This?
Yeah, to erase this from your mind. Either way. So let's vote. That's the easiest thing to do. Matt, since you are the guest, we will allow you the first crack.
Man, really? You're giving me the first shot, huh?
Yeah.
See, I guess it boils down to, like, I actually like enjoyed this as a so bad it's good movie. So it didn't frustrate me or make me regret watching it. I think that's generally my criterion, is if I'm just like, why did I waste my time on this piece of shit, then I usually say put it in the Phantom Zone. But this movie was like weird and unique and unintentionally funny enough that I think I'm gonna not put it in the Phantom Zone. However you say that.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
No,
not guilty.
The key is for honesty, you know, and you want your passion to come out when it comes to it, because I know there's lots of times that people hesitate, and I like that. I like when people hesitate because it's a jokey show that we're doing, but it's one of those that you're thinking constructively about this decision that you're making, you know?
Yeah, well, basically, what I'm thinking through is like, I want to give a signal as to whether another person who is looking for a bad movie to watch should watch this.
Oh yeah.
And I would say, yeah, if you're looking for a bad movie to watch, this is a watchable bad movie. It's not like some bad movies where you're just like, you just like go on your phone because there's no point to watching it, you know?
Yeah.
This is actually riveting. Yeah. Anyway, that's my vote.
Scott, what's your vote?
Not guilty.
It's fine.
No, I completely agree with Matt. I think this was a fun, so bad it's good movie. I think the tonal dissonance makes me love it in a weird kind of way. And I think if I have kids, if one day one of my kids comes up to me and says, "So Dad, I've been reading about this whole libertarian thing," I'm going to sit him down. I'm going to make him watch this movie. I'm going to say, "You still want to be one of those?" And I bet he's going to say no, because that's how bad this movie is. So I want to keep it out of the Phantom Zone, if just for that.
Depending upon what age your child is, you can easily have somebody open up a great metal door. Great metal doggy door and slide your child out.
What? What?
That's what they did. That's what they did in the movie. That's how they save the child. Is they've got that giant. It's like a giant metal dog door that's built into the wall, and somebody just throws the little baby carriage underneath it.
You haven't heard of the FEMA baby chute?
Well, I haven't heard of the FEMA-sponsored luxury prison utopia baby chute.
Yeah,
it's all about the brand, Scott. It's all about branding.
I mean, all these disasters are being fabricated, you realize. There was no hurricane in Texas.
I believe you, man.
Yeah, why did...
Forgot about that.
First of all, there was that Jamaican guy, but then the director did a Jamaican voice once. And I didn't understand why.
Was it a line from a movie? That's what I was trying to figure out. I wrote it down. It
might have been.
But I don't know, because he makes the comment. Because he makes a comment to him when he's like, "Oh, why didn't you just steal it?" And he makes a comment about, God, where is it? Where he says that it's not mine, man.
I think Jamaicans are cool, and he's a cool guy. And he's showing you that he's a cool guy by speaking in a Jamaican accent. I think that's literally as simple as it is.
Because his coworker is also Jamaican?
Trench coats and Jamaican accents.
Yeah, man.
I got it.
I don't know.
Adrian, have you voted yet? You got to vote.
No, because it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, but
what would you vote?
But it mattered. If I'm going with my heart and I'm being completely honest, then it's one of those that I want it to go to the Phantom Zone, because of when I was like dissecting the movie and I was really thinking about it. That's what bothered me. And like when it came to the end of the movie, I was jokingly telling Scott, I was like, "Oh, I want to, tweet this or tweet this." And there's been a rash of a whole bunch of people who've been on Twitter. Some of them are filmmakers, so I totally understand their point for the most part, demeaning or getting mad at people who are saying bad things about movies, and it made me feel a little bit bad. And I was like, because I'm trying to have a bigger conversation and I want to discuss these movies on the whole. And yeah, we can joke about the bad stuff that you see on screen, because it doesn't matter how good the lighting might be, that somebody might do something stupid because the director thought it was a great idea. That's not a fault of them. And that's a comment that you see, is lots of people are like, well, you have to remember that there's lots of people who work on these films and put hard work into it. And it's like, in my view, if I'm watching a movie legally, not illegally, but legally, if I'm paying for a ticket, I'm paying, a subscription service that the rights are on and stuff like that, then in a way I'm giving to the people, who worked on the crew and stuff for the film. if there's somebody who made something who wrote something demeaning, who is betraying the audience or lying to the audience, if there's fundamental mistakes that are being done from the written point of view or from the directing stance, that I think it's okay for people to say that. And so my response that I put on Twitter is, how do we talk about bad movies constructively? I mean, there's got to be a way to do so where it doesn't sound like we're invalidating or disparaging the work people on the crew who aren't actors, directors, writers have done. If I acknowledge hoping that they get work in the future, is it then game on? I understand the desire to be positive and respectful, but what's on the other side? Because I just watched a movie fully proving that Neil Breen and Tommy Wiseau are indeed entertaining visionaries in their own way, as I'd rather watch anything by them over what I just saw ever again. And so like that's why I say guilty. But if I view it from like just the average person out there, then I'm totally fine that it's not going into the Phantom Zone, because I can look at it at the viewpoint that you guys did. And if people go online and they put in alongside night trailer and they watch the trailer, they're going to want to watch the movie immediately, because what's presented there is something that's, on the level of like a Birdemic. Except for the guy who made Birdemic was like, I just really want to make a movie. I've got a fun idea. It's not somebody who'd been sitting with a belief system and idea for over 30 years. So like that's why I say that it's guilty, because if I boil it down to that basis, then I would want it to go away. But on the very simple, oh my God, you have to see this movie because there's so much ridiculous things that can't really be explained, so you just have to witness it, then I have no complaints with the fact that you guys went out.
Yeah, I think this movie may be a reductio ad absurdum for the whole idea of auteur theory, because auteur theory, sorry, because this guy's the perfect auteur. He wrote the book. He was obsessed with it. He made the film, and look at it. Just look at it.
That's perfect. I think that's a perfect way to end the episode.
I have things to say, but I'm not going to, because we don't have time. I agree if you don't, but I'll stand by the Neil Breen and Wiseau would be better auteurs. And I think that's because of, as I already mentioned, the inflection of bringing random people who don't necessarily fit the story into this and being like, here, it's your thing now too. And it's like, well, that's not entirely how I'd view it. So
that definitely makes it a worse movie, but in a fun way. So
yes, yeah, but maybe not 100% auteur theory. So
perhaps. Almost,
but not quite.
Is Jim Jarmusch an auteur? Because Jim Jarmusch pulls random ass people into all his movies.
He's a good director.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Matt, where can people find you on the internet?
I can be found at Morden Mail on Twitter. And if you want to listen to my voice more, then elsewhere on the Daily Planet feed or the We've Got Ward podcast.
See, Scott, that's how people make sure to mention other podcasts that they're doing.
I do that all the time. I do that every episode.
No, you tell them where you are on Twitter, and then I usually have to goad you into mentioning the We Are Worm, which is now We Are Ward.
Well, that's because I assume that most people listening to this do not cross over. Like, if you're reading the book,
wow,
great.
Wow, I see how it is. You're trying to limit our audience. You're saying that they can't, possibly like bad movies and then also like Ward, because I'm pretty sure we have a gentleman on here, named Matt, who's just shown that you can be somebody who used to really like the Fountainhead and can understand this movie better than a normal person would, and also enjoy this movie and then discuss and enjoy We Are Ward.
I don't know what to say.
I mean,
exactly.
We know that we have Ward listeners who listen to this show. So
Yeah, but they don't need the show plugged then.
exactly.
They can tell their friends, you know. I'm basically still mad at you, Scott, for deciding to send me a message about news that I already knew about Boss Baby early this week.
Hey guys,
Just
Boss
reminded
Baby
me, so.
is an Academy Award nominee.
Shut up!
That's I mean, if I still considered the Academy Awards to mean anything, I guess that would be sad. But
I think your children would love
No.
Boss Baby, Matt.
No.
okay.
Scott, where can you be found on the internet?
I am also on Twitter at ScottDaily85. That's DALY. And like Matt, you can find me.
No, that's we're out of time for you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You have the dailyplanet.com or dailyplanetfilms.com.
Yeah.
LY.
Yes. No, I.
Exactly. There you go. You're done.
Thank you.
You can find me online on Twitter at Adrian Torres. You can also find my writing at boomhowdy.com. Next week, you can see several articles on boomhowdy.com as well as downrightcreepy.com, because this weekend in Kansas City, we have the Panic Film Fest, and there's going to be a whole bunch of films, and so I'll have 4 reviews that are going up next week. I'm trying to get a couple people to come on to our show next week, so we'll know in the next day or two what movie we will be covering at that time. I can only hope that it was as enthralling a discussion as this. Matt, I want to thank you for coming back and being on the show, because there was lots of insight that you were able to help fill in the gaps and inform the people who are listening to this, things that they either may not have known or things that they didn't have to stop and check Google for in the discussion.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. Scott?
Are you going to be mean to me again?
No. Are you okay?
I'm doing okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
A little sad.
I didn't mean
sad.
to hurt your feelings.
It's okay.
Do you want to barter goods?
No, I like the dollar. I believe in the dollar.
Is there any chance that I can give you a gold coin and you give me 3 separate currencies back?
I didn't get that.
And on that note, take care, everybody.
I don't need no predictions. I don't listen to fate. I'm a cold soul survivor, and I've been known not to wait. In a land of confusion, no one's ready to face. If it's love that you're after, then you're in the wrong place, baby.